Hi, and welcome to this episode of From the Syllabus, How to Create Quests Part 2. I am Lee Hall, an Associate Professor of Literacy Studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And today I'm going to be continuing on our discussion of gamification and how you can apply principles of gamification to your instruction in regards to creating quests. So part 1, we talked about just the general concept of how to create quests. And we talked about assignments as quests. And so what I want to shift to now is thinking about in-class quests, okay? And I love the idea of in-class quests because for me, it has solved the participation dilemma. So you might know the participation dilemma. You might have seen it or used it on a syllabus yourself where you might say something like participation is worth 10% of your final grade. And then you're left trying to figure out what counts as participation. If I give somebody only 5% out of the 10%, how do I justify that? What about quality? What about quantity? How do I balance those? But in-class quests solves that need because in-class quests gives students specific tasks that they have to engage in and do in order to earn experience points, right? And those go towards their grade. So in-class quests are exactly what they are. They are assignments that are given in class. Sometimes I time them. And when I say time, sometimes I'll say, you have 30 minutes to complete this challenge. Your time starts now, go. Other times I might be more loosey-goosey, like I might say, well, this will take us about 30 to 45 minutes and we'll see how everybody's doing. So it just sort of depends on the nature of the task and if I think that it's beneficial for us to time it or not. Students can be informed about them in advance or not. I'm going to show you an example where I informed students about the quest in advance. And I had them do some preparation work before they came to class. So you can do that, or you can just spring it on them in class. It really, again, depends on the nature of what you're doing. All right, so this is an example. And what happened is I was teaching a master's level class to K-12 teachers. And it was a content area literacy class. So how do they work with their students to teach them how to read and write in English, history, science, etc. And so we've been reading a text, and the text had this section on the 7 deadly sins of textbook writing. Okay, and talking about how textbooks present knowledge. And so these are the directions that I gave to students, and this is what they needed to do before they came to class. So I have here, right, that a central argument that the book is making that textbooks often present knowledge as static and maybe even stagnant when it is actually constantly evolving within any discipline. There are always debates about what counts as knowledge within a discipline, how that knowledge should be represented, and if and how it should be taught in schools. So they've read about this 7 deadly sins thing. Now we're going to have a challenge. Bring one or more texts to class, or it was fine with me if they copied excerpts, because some books are pretty heavy, that you either have used with your students in the past, are using now, or expect to use in the future. And I gave them 200 experience points for this. Now, having done this for a little over a year now, I would actually ramp that up. I think 200 is low. I'd ramp it up like maybe 1,200 experience points. You play with experience points. And then I told them, again, before you come to class, evaluate the text in terms of the 7 deadly sins. You get 500 experience points for that. List out the one important thing you learned from doing this on the chart that follows. So I didn't include the chart here, but underneath these directions, there was a chart and they had to put their name and they had to write out one important thing they learned. And the only way to get those 500 points was to have your name in there by the time class started. If you put it in after, you didn't get the points. And then be prepared to discuss with a group what you learned from evaluating your text. Now, I didn't give any XP for that, but I could. And I think now if I was doing this again, I would. Like if you were there in class, I would give you points because you were there and you were participating. It's like a participation grade. Okay, and then you see here, what did you learn from evaluating your text? Complete before class starts. And then this was on our class wiki. And then underneath that, there was a chart and they had to write their name and what they learned before our class started. Okay, now they, pick out their text, they evaluate it, I fill out the chart, they have their small group discussion, and then we're going to change things up. Now, instead of evaluating content, they're going to become creators of content, and this was a timed challenge. They had 30 minutes to do the following. Given your understandings about the 7 deadly sins, what you learned from your evaluation, what you know about nonfiction reading and writing, create a piece of content for other teachers that helps them understand how to identify and use nonfiction texts in ways that will support their students' abilities to read and or write them. All right, so what I wanted them to do was they could work by themselves, they could work with a partner. I didn't care how they configured themselves, but they had to produce knowledge that was going to be relevant and useful to other people in their field. That is a very central aspect of how I approach teaching, particularly at the master's level, okay? And I gave them 30 minutes. You know, maybe I could have given them 45, but here's the thing that I know about something like this. If I don't give them a time limit, they'll take all class period, okay? And a class period is 2 hours and 50 minutes, right? They'll just, you know, not be super efficient. They'll poke around. They'll take all the time that you give them. So limit it, 30 minutes, maybe 45, right? Create the content however you want. Just do it. Now, when 30 minutes are up, if you created a piece of content that you could share, right? It didn't have to go live, but it was ready to go live. I gave you 1,500 experience points. If you did not finish, then you got 800, okay? So again, I would change the experience points. I would ramp that up, right? If you create a piece of content in 30 minutes, I'd probably give you 5,000. If you did like some partial work, then maybe 2,500 or 2,000 or something like that. So this is an example of an in-class quest that I think really helps. It gets the students engaged. It also helps address this issue about how do I get participation, right? If you weren't there that day for whatever reason, you just didn't get these points. But I have this going on in my class all the time. So if you were absent, you were going to have multiple other ways to get points. But you're there, you get the points. If you're not, you don't. Now, you could have filled out the chart, right? I'm going to hop back here to this previous slide. And you could have gotten 500 experience points from point B there. And then you got sick and you couldn't come. Okay, fine, whatever. I'll still give you the 500 experience points because you did that. So that is a way to think about how to do quests in class. So we will continue talking about principles of gamification. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me, leahall39@gmail.com. And you can also find my blog where I write about this, write reflections on how this is all going at leahall.wordpress.com.